Okay, thank you, Paola. I appreciate that. And we should be ready to go. So thank you again for everyone for attending. A quick introduction of myself. Hopefully everyone can see the screen. Click on the image of Rich if you do not. I have a very brief background. I have years in industry, 27 of which are as a project manager. I've been mainly in telecom, but I've also spent a great deal of my career on the side teaching and consulting in project management, teaching at Boston University, Emerson College. I will be
Rich,
teaching.
I'm sorry, this is Paola. We cannot see your presentation.
Okay, I'll try to do that again.
Thanks.
Bear with me. Now you can. Now you can, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not sure what happened, but now we're on. And so I was just giving my background. I will not repeat that part. It's really boring. I will then continue with my introduction. I've also written a couple of books, co-authored some books. One in particular called Green Project Management, which won the PMI's award for literature in 2011, the so-called Cleland Award. And I've also co-authored a book on project workflow management. So let me continue with the presentation now that you can see it. Start with a rhetorical question, wondering if anyone knows what this is. It's actually a photograph I took a few weeks ago. And the answer is this is taken from inside one of the tunnels of Boston's so-called Big Dig project. What you're seeing is a light. And if you look a little more closely, the arrows are pointing to some straps, some of hundreds of thousands of straps. What's that all about?
Rich,
Well,
sorry.
this is one of 25,000 110-pound light fixtures, one of which fell off the wall and onto the roadway. Luckily, no one was hurt. What you're seeing here holding the light on is some temporary, semi-temporary straps. And these are, you're seeing this slide now, a white slide with black printing, I hope. 110 light fixtures, that one of which had fallen onto the roadway. Luckily, no one was hurt. Repairing these and fastening them back on and making sure they wouldn't fall off cost $54 million. At least that was the estimate. It caused the tunnels in Boston's major arteries to be closed, or at least multiple lanes of them closed, at times causing massive inconvenience to people. Several people were fired for the issue that took place. And the cause was basically due to dissimilar metals and the presence of salt and salt water in the environment. But the root cause, from my perspective, is a holistic, the lack of holistic consideration of the long term. And this is only one of several examples of short-term thinking and non-holistic thinking on this and other projects. We're going to come back to the Big Dig later in this talk. Two key takeaways from this is that it's not always about green. Green is obviously important. The ecological aspects of projects are fundamentally critical. But we must remember that they're only one of three aspects of the triple bottom line. The triple bottom line includes other things like social, as Paola mentioned, social and economic aspects as well. Really, it's more about holistically thinking and having a perspective of long-term success, not just of the project, but of the product of the project. In fact, we've adapted the Stanford execution framework into this gear model that shows the kind of the top parts of an organization, whether it's a profit or nonprofit company, having mission, vision, and values at the very, very top, overarching mission, vision, and values, and then obviously yielding steady state operations. But the connecting gear here is the portfolios of programs and projects. That's where the rubber hits the road, and this theme will be repeated a little bit later in the presentation. But that golden gear in the center, that's us as project managers, program managers, and portfolio managers. Brings to mind a book I read when I was an expat for a couple of years in the Netherlands. I did read this book in English and not in the Netherlands taal, but I found it to be a terrific book, and it's an excellent movie. It's a great take if you have a chance. You should catch this movie. It's called The Discovery of Heaven. But I'm not going to present the book to you. What I'd like to present to you is its table of contents. Harry Mullish, well-known author, divided this book into 4 sections: the beginning of the beginning, the end of the beginning of the end, and the end of the end. Most of us as project managers tend to stop our thinking at the end of the beginning, meaning the launch of the project. It's the handover of the project to operations. We tend to stop. And our training and our PMBOK guides and Prince 2 methodology often talks about the handoff as being the end of the project. We like to give permission and encouragement to continue, at least in your thinking, to the thinking of the beginning of the end. In other words, when the product is in its operation and when the product is actually even disposed of. So all the way through to the end of the end. As an example of this life cycle thinking, let's take a washing machine. So here's a washing machine, and the way it impacts our environment in terms of the way it's produced, distributed, used, and disposed of. In this case, we can see that the use is the major portion of impact. So when a company like Seventh Generation looks into its product packaging, they find that that doesn't make that much difference. What they should do, and what they found that their effort was better spent on, was producing a product. They produce laundry detergent. A laundry detergent that allows cleaning in colder water, because that would bring this heavily impactful set of bars, the usage bar, down. So clearly, life cycle thinking is important. Long-term and holistic thinking is important. But as project managers, we're necessarily short-term thinkers. We don't look deeply into the future. We're focused necessarily, in some cases, on the project at hand. We live our projects in detail at the project level, and our back is turned on the steady state. The gentleman on the right-hand side of the screen kind of bending over, that's us. We're looking back at the Gantt chart, and you can see there opportunities and threats and headaches taking place in our Gantt chart, and maybe somewhere in the distance we have a handoff to operations and we have a little party. But if you were to take that whole thing and shrink it down, because in real life the project is just a blip, then that project, which now shows as a little time frame on the left, is only part of a much bigger picture that includes the project's handoff and operations all the way through to disposal. And if we think about the project in terms of the product in its steady state, we actually would gain some advantage. Things like risk identification. Going back to the Big Dig, they would have understood more about the dissimilar metals and the galvanic corrosion if they had thought about the light in its longer term. So we've pushed this message for a long time, as have other colleagues on the phone here with me, on the Google Hangout with me. And what we found is we get a lot of serious pushback, negative feedback, basically being told that you guys are just adding other constraints to us. So what we've decided probably about a year ago was that project management is probably the wrong level. We got to kick it up a notch or two and maybe look at the portfolio level. We feel it's at the portfolio or at the enterprise level where we really can make a difference. So how do we do that? One of the ways to do that is understanding when a project is really complete and what success really means. There was an article in PM Journal that actually talked about project success, and it talked about different hierarchical levels of success, all the way from project success to product success to organizational success. And they almost had it right. They even started to mention green benefits. But what this article left out, and here's a reference to the article, was the idea of continued success, or what I call sustainability success. So this is a great article, and when you replay the video, you can get the link here. It's from a 2012 PM Journal issue. And even though this has been mentioned in the last year or two, and it's been getting hotter and hotter, you'll see some of the colleagues on this presentation today will cover this as well. It's not a new idea. There's a quote here from Pinto and Slevin from 1988. Some of you might not even have been born yet. And they were talking about understanding project success only after the project has been transferred to clients for whom it's intended. So it supports our assertion that there are some very sustainably oriented way to view our discipline, and it's really how we'd like to evolve project management. Our view is a modification of Peter Drucker's view, which is efficiency and effectiveness. We include a third E here, endurance. And the formula at the top basically just says that we're bigger than our projects. Project success is much greater than, over time, project management success. In other words, the effectiveness and efficiency of the product of the project. But we're looking more at the product of the project. To that end, we've come up with this matrix, a 2x2 matrix, classic 2x2 matrix, that shows several different ways of looking at a project. Let's start with these two dimensions from Peter Drucker: effectiveness on the vertical here, and efficiency on the horizontal. So something that's low in both was a low in terms of project success, and also low in terms of project management success. Unfortunately, living in Boston, we have to point to the big dig here. This is a project that was very, very late, was something in the order of 10 to 15 times over budget, and has some ongoing problems. So the product of the project isn't working well, and the project itself took extra time. So it's low. It's in this lower left-hand corner. Let's move up to the Sydney Opera House. Most people think of this as a successful project. And indeed, it's a symbol of Australia, and it's considered a success in that it offers the country, and I've been there, it offers tremendous sound quality, and it's clearly an iconic building. But the project itself, if you look it up, was way over budget and very, very late. So its project success was high, but the project management success was low. Then there are companies that have put out products that they're kind of sorry that they did. The project may have been introduced very, very well, but the product of the project was not successful, and I have a few examples there. And in the upper right-hand corner, I'll leave it to you to come up with some ideal projects. There are very few where the project itself is highly successful and the product of the project is not only successful, but holistic thinking went into it, and it doesn't have a lot of impact on the environment. So to take it one step further, we actually think about this endurance piece as exaggerating the idea of project success and thinking about it over time. So that's this movement in the back here. It's the third dimension of thinking about this in terms of time. There's a model that we are going to be using in a new book. I'll talk about it in a moment. This model comes from a gentleman named Paul Bannerman. And with his permission, we're using his model that talks about maturity in project management, going from a lowest level of maturity up to level 5 here is a very high level of maturity, considering our view of projects, products of the project, and kind of the enterprise level of project success as we move from left to right. So on the left, you see a project view where we're very focused on our timeline, on our Gantt charts, and on our stakeholder registers and risk registers. All important stuff, not trying to trivialize that, just saying that that is one element of maturity. As you move up, you consider the product, you consider the deliverables, you start to think about success, and as you move even further, you become more strategic, more focused on the long term, more focused on what the product of the project does in its steady state and how that fits into the overall enterprise's mission, vision, and value, and how you deal with your market, with your competitors, with all of your stakeholders. If you think about stakeholders, they move from very technical stakeholders at the lower levels all the way up to external business stakeholders. And here's where you see partnerships, for example, between Coca-Cola and the World Wildlife Federation as examples of maturity and holistic thinking, even on the social front. There's some more detail here, some questions you can ask. It's a very, very good chart. And then at the top, we can look at the return on investment going from very tactical and project-oriented to steady-state streams of revenue, steady-state benefits in terms of social, ecological, and economic benefit. So here's another connection that we made. This one's a little bit fun, so I thought we'd have a little bit of fun with you today. There's a book called Change Intelligence by an excellent author, Barbara Trautwein. And in the book, she talks about assessing people in 3 dimensions: head, heart, and hands. There's a personality assessment you can take in the book. It's really quite revealing. Turns out most project managers are hands people. With that in mind, I came up with a model that shows how project managers can face long-term thinking because of the fact that they're hand-oriented and where that might cause some problems. So when we get a project, we get a charter, we kind of raise our hand, we take the project, we go through the classic initiate, plan, execute, monitor, control, and close. We have all hands on deck. It's very hands-oriented. And at the end of the project, we tend to wash our hands of it, right? We're done. And that's one of the problems because we really aren't thinking as much as we should about the handoff, right? So at the end of the project, we hand off the project. You see the theme hand coming through relatively frequently here. Now here's where the interesting part comes in. When we hand the project off, when the product is in its steady state, we need to be thinking about its steady state operation, financial success, ecological success, and social success, the triple bottom line. And there are several places, and I won't go into detail here, but there are several places where there are potential brick walls or roadblocks to having that take place. For example, there could be a blockage between the enterprise level and the charter. Is this project really connected to the portfolio goals of the company, to the enterprise level goals of the company? Other presentations today will actually bring this up. Is there potentially a block between the handoff and the enterprise level? Is there potentially a blockage between the close of the project and the handoff to operations? We see that very, very commonly. So just a thinking tool, and it's a reminder to check out this book because it's a pretty revealing book in terms of your own personality type and your project team's personality type. This leads us to a model we've come up with, and it's the foundation of a book we've worked on called Sustainability in Projects, Programs, and Portfolios. This is called the Sustainability Wheel. It has 6 dimensions of measurement: respect, reflect, connect, detect, reject, and project. And that's project, not project. It's more about projecting out into the future and looking at opportunities. So I can't go through all the details here, but we've put a lot of work into this instrument, and what it yields is a series of measurements that you can get, or a profile of your enterprise. And looking at each of these dimensions, it can actually convey where you might have some gaps. And we have in the range of 20 signatures that come out of this instrument that can point you in a direction and give you specific coaching as to how your company, your enterprise, can dig further into gaps that you might have when it comes to doing sustainability thinking. So that's a rather quick view of our background and this instrument, which is what we're leading up to. And here are here's my contact information. We're pretty well present on social media, and once I finally get presentations shared, I'm even available here on this YouTube video. So thank you very, very much for your time. I want to thank Paula and my colleagues as well for an excellent job in getting ready for this. So thank you very much. Now I'm going to hand it off to Ron Skipper,